All right, CNT125. Let's talk about getting our console connection up and going for configuring switches, routers, almost any of our network devices this semester. So first thing I did when I came in, I did power up my computers. I logged in my lab computer with password of CNT class. After that, I did turn on the power strip in my equipment rack. In this case, the top power strip because I'm using the top equipment. Remember, the corner of the table tells you whether you're using top or bottom half of the equipment. So I have my routers and switches on. I have my student PCs on, or my lab PCs on, if you will. I got my console cable at the side of the room. Cabinet at the side of the room has console cables in. I brought one over to my lab table. What I'm going to do now is establish this console connection from the PC into the router or switch that I need to configure. So I'm going to carefully, just for ease of viewing, I'm going to carefully turn this PC around. I'm going to try to get enough slack in the cables here. As I look at the back of the PC, power cord over here on the right. Over on the left is my display port connection, network card. In the middle here, here's my USB ports. Over here in kind of the left half, if you will, we have a VGA connection for monitor, and right below that is my serial connection, my RS-232. I'm going to take my console cable, the serial end, the RS-232 end, and I'm going to connect that into that console or COM port. Okay, I'm going to give it just a couple twists so it stays in place, so it doesn't come out on me. I don't need to get too aggressive with it. Just a couple twists so it does not come out of the port while I'm using it. I'm going to carefully swivel this back around. And you can probably just do this by looking over the top of it. Once I have that end connected, I need to connect the other end, the RJ45 end, into the device I want to configure. So as I look at my equipment rack up here, switches usually have the console port on the back. Some routers have it on the back, some have it on the front. If I look at this router, the console port is actually on the back. I do not see it here. As I look at this router, there is actually a console port right here. So if I were connecting into this router, I could console right there and away I go. I'm going to use the top switches today for my connection. These switches have the console connection in the back. So I will need to kind of like lay my console cable over here until I can go around the back of the equipment rack. Get my cables here. There we go. And here's my console cable. I'm going to carefully take that, find the appropriate switch. So let's say I'm going to use the very top switch up here. I'm finding the top switch. Over off to the corner is my console port, and it'll be in blueprint. I'm going to connect my console cable into that port. Now I'll come around to my lab station and get the console connection going on the desktop. Okay, now that I have the physical connection done, let's launch the software to do the logical connection, if you will. On my desktop, I have PuTTY, P-U-T-T-Y. That is my terminal emulation program. I'm going to launch that. Give it a second or two to come up. Once it does, I do need to put my COM port settings in. Now, I will have this on a separate podcast so you can see the details, but I'm looking for the serial up here, COM1. I'm going to make sure I select the serial button, speed 9600. I will highlight my default settings and I'll save it. That way I don't need to set that every time. I will say open, and that'll bring me a prompt here. If I hit the enter key a couple times, I will actually see my connection into, in this case, the switch, but the switch or the router. Now I'm actually consoled in just like I was doing in my lab simulator. That is how I'll establish my console connection for connecting into routers and switches this semester for configuration.